the chapter podcasts for the Springer Handbook of Using Virtual Exchange Across Disciplines, Building Global Citizens from Home. This exciting chapter is entitled From Learning to Living, How Motivation and Metacognition Foster Well-Being and Happiness in Language Acquisition. And we have the authors with us today to talk about their VE partnership in depth. Renee Delia Zunino and Luisa Amenta will be answering two big questions during the next half hour or so. One, based on the chapter, what impact did VE have on the subject matter of your course? And two, what would have been missed in teaching about their discipline if virtual exchange were not included? I invite the authors to introduce yourselves, giving your affiliations, research and teaching interests, and perhaps something on how you met and came together to do this project.
Okay, I'll start. Hello, everyone, and thank you, Pat, for having us today. My name is Renee Delia Zunino, and I am a distinguished lecturer at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. In recent years, my teaching has focused more and more on well-being and sustainable development goals, in particular climate action and food safety. I trained in positive psychology, and I was part of a wonderful program at our university called Volunteer Experience Faculty Fellows. And this program helped me focus on student success and ultimately brought me to career readiness, which was the final part of our COIL collaboration, by the way.
Thank you, Pat. Hello to everybody. I'm Luisa Amenta. I am full professor of Italian linguistics at the University of Palermo, where I teach Italian language teaching and Italian language for foreigners. My research interests include Italian grammar, trends in contemporary Italian, and actually I'm currently Vice Rector for Educational Innovation and President of the Teaching and Learning Center at our university, and which is why I became interested in the COIL methodology, and I participated in a 4-week summer workshop organized by the FIU with René. We immediately decided to collaborate on this topic.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
As section editor for World Languages and Applied Humanities, I serve as moderator for this podcast. An expert in business French and language for special purposes, I am Patricia Cummins, a professor of French and intercultural communication at Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond, Virginia. In addition to publishing 6 books and over 60 articles, I have hosted grant-funded American language and civilization workshops for international teachers and learners of English, and I found this chapter to be particularly exciting. So I'm coming back again to the questions on virtual exchange impact on disciplinary learning and what would be missed without VE. Who would like to comment first?
I can start.
Okay.
So I'd like to underline that the virtual exchange was not just a delivery mode. It actually really shaped what our subject matter became. Because the tasks that we were offering our students revolved around important topics like well-being and happiness in everyday life. And they were completed through cross-cultural communication. So the virtual exchange practically transformed those topics into a lived comparative inquiry rather than just the students having to simply read or perform in front of their professor, as they like to say. And the discipline really, the focus expanded from a pure language form or accuracy, if you want to call it that way, to our language in use for meaningful social purposes. because we were discussing mindfulness, we were discussing food health, we were discussing a happiness map with the real partners. And so this could not have ever happened without the virtual exchange component. So concretely, the impact on the subject matter was threefold. First of all, I think this experience accelerated an authentic oral development. And so the students gained in fluency and vocabulary and grammar, and they didn't have to just perform it in front of the instructor. Also, there was a renegotiation of motivation, and this is just so important and so powerful. My American students started this course not knowing what they were getting into. Some had cold feet. Some were a little bit worried that it would take away too much time from their extra or their too much time from their own schedule because it was going to require extra time. And the motivation for some was lacking. And that's why I on my side, I was afraid that the linguistic apathy was there. And I was just looking so much forward to seeing some kind of transformation and some kind of miraculous motivation coming to birth. And it happened. It happened. I can tell you a funny tidbit. There was a student who, right before we started the COIL experience, because we only worked on it for 5.5 weeks because our schedules did not coincide. And so just a day or two before the COIL experience was going to start, I had a student who came to me and said, I think I want to drop this class because I don't feel like I'm performing at the level of the other students. And granted that my course had B1, B2, and C1 level students, so there was a mix. But this one student wanted to give up. And I told him, hang on, just wait a minute and let's see if the COIL experience will help you find the motivation you need to dig deeper into the language and perform better. And it was amazing. This was the one student who wanted to drop, who by the end of the COIL session had become so excited about the experience and also about the topics that we discussed and the assignments that we gave our students, which included topics like digital detox and mindfulness and relaxation techniques, everything focused towards well-being, that he composed a 4-verse song, and he kept singing that at the end of every class. And so it was really amazing. And if you want to, I can even read it to you because it's really funny. It rhymes in Italian. It says, let me see if I remember, disintossicarsi dal mondo digitale, lasciare il telefono e il virtuale, camminare tra gli alberi, respirare il mare, ritrovare la pace, tornare a sognare. The translation is very simple. In order to detox from a digital world, you have to leave behind the phone and anything virtual. You have to walk through the trees, breathe in the sea, and find peace and dream again. So very simple words, but the fun thing about it was that he was singing this all the time and he got the whole class involved and they were all jamming to the tune. And so this was just one of those moments that I was so much longing for, and it did really happen. So this is just to tell you that the motivation was totally renegotiated. And then one last thing, and I'll have Louisa jump in. I wanted to also say that making wellness and well-being interdisciplinary allowed the students, not only to learn concepts, and I think that had a lot to do with psychology, with sociology, with intercultural studies, but they really tested those concepts across cultures. And so this dialogue, this co-creation of artifacts, videos, maps, and so on, just totally mirror what virtual exposure, what virtual exchange can do and support intercultural learning alongside language outcomes.
Okay.
Yeah. For the students of UNIPA of the University of Palermo, they are students of Italian as foreign language. The COIL was an experience that allowed them to put into practice what it truly means to be linguistic models when interacting with foreigner learning Italian. I have to say that it's particularly important for me that the students at the University of Palermo have taken the course Italian language for foreigner in the first semester of the past year, and they chose to participate in this experiment just voluntarily, so that they have also really strong motivation. So another meaning of motivation in our experiment. And this voluntary participation highlights the ability of the COIL methodology to spark engagement and a sense of belonging. And the fact that the students who were not directly enrolled in the course chose to participate in an extracurricular and experimental activity demonstrate that motivation, intrinsic motivation, can be activated through teaching practices that are based on collaboration and that share construction of knowledge.
Well, as we conclude our podcast, I want to provide an opportunity, a final opportunity for you to add to your existing comments. Maybe some things occurred to you as you were making your presentations. And is there something else you would like to add before we conclude?
I can add something. I would like to say that without the virtual exchange, much of the disciplinary value of the wellness theme would have flattened. It would have been a flat world instead of a round world for sure. And so the intercultural test of ideas allowed the students to discover self-care and digital detox and happiness um, with partners, and they were able to address also the linguistic curiosity they had towards their international counterparts. So my students were surprised to hear that the students from Palermo spoke Italian with a certain inflection. They noticed that their performance, let's call it that way, while speaking, was accompanied by certain facial expressions or hand gestures. And little by little, they started noticing as they were recording their own assignments that they too were transforming and using facial expressions and using gestures while they were using the Italian. And they liked what they heard and they liked what they saw. I got so many interesting comments, so much great feedback from students who told me, I didn't know that I sounded that way when I was speaking Italian. I speak Italian in the class all the time, but I don't really hear myself, and I like myself when I'm using the foreign language. And so that was also an extra motivation for them to continue doing their hard work. And so this built a lot of confidence, and also the social pressure that they had became a way of saying, okay, well, I don't want to impress my international counterpart. I just want to be able to focus on good vocabulary and good use of syntax. But at a certain point, I don't really care. I want to throw it out the window, and I want to try to be spontaneous in my Italian speaking, just like my international peers from Palermo are with English, because their English is so good and my English is and my Italian is so bad. So there was a realization that they were not speaking fluently as much as they wanted, and this experience really pushed them to try better and to do more.
And in addition, we can also say that this experience helped the students to know that to making mistakes during conversation is a part of the learning process. So they have a kind of mutual understanding and fostering a supportive and encouraging for language learning. So it was also important for this about the grammatical, lexical errors are a part of the learning process, not something that is not good.
Well, this is really exciting. I enjoyed your story about the young man who was singing all the time and these other comments. It warms my heart. But once again, I'd like to underscore the importance of this chapter for those who engaged in teacher education anywhere in the world. Quoting from your last paragraph, learning a foreign language through COIL transcends traditional methods by immersing students in authentic contexts that foster linguistic proficiency and intercultural understanding. The profound impact lies in its ability to connect learners directly to the living essence of a language, its people, culture, and real-world application, making it an indispensable tool for holistic education. Thank you again to both of you for your contributions to this volume.
Thank you.
Thank you.